what WITI's all about. Am I okay? You still hear me, right? Okay.
Yes.
Looks like a little internet glitch. Sorry about that. Yeah, so anyway, any of these, WITI Ag Tech, Ag Bio, and Food Tech, we're starting soon. There's events I'm going to take you to under the events tab where we just launched, as we had our last physical event on March 5th. And how many minutes do I have, Melissa? I heard 10. I'll keep, is that good? Or I can cut a little
You
short.
have 10, you for sure have it.
Beautiful. So I just want to run everybody quickly through what we're doing and then leave it open for questions and tell you how you can get a hold of us if there's anything we can do to support you. So in our well-being center, every Tuesday and Thursday, we have Qigong, energy management with Elise. It's breathing exercises. Fred on Fridays does the medicine dance about getting movement through your body. We're just adding yoga nidra every Monday. That's meditation. Yoga every Wednesday. And then we also have, and this is one too, I'm going to put in the chat, the Business Not As Usual safe space to talk about race events. This will be our 9th. It's really been awesome. And the next one we're doing is the day after Thanksgiving. So we thought that might be a good way. It's really just a kind of combination of meditation and talking to each other and sharing. Denise and Ted kind of lead facilitated conversations. A really great event. Then we also, under the webinars and coaching circles tab, we have all sorts of, today we had a global leadership synchronization meeting. We had a storytelling session that was really great. Most of these are recorded. Tomorrow there is a member orientation. We dig a little deeper, so all that can be found there. We have our WITI networks, so we have programs in different languages in different parts of the world you can jump into. Our next WITI Egypt event actually was going cycling, so that's one we cannot do remotely. But we are at a lot of our networks too, starting to things where you're not allowed to be on camera and you have to be out walking. Actually, WITI Austin, close in your state, does have, I think do we have a specific day on that, Laura? I know once a month we have a power walk with a WITI leadership coach and they bring in a new leader.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then and then our summit we're having December 8th through the 10th. And it's a virtual summit and it's going to be a great way to kind of put 2020 behind us and get a game plan for 2021. And we have many speakers that have just been confirmed today, one of which I was excited to hear was Deborah Plunkett, who's she's a former director of the NSA and now does consulting and sits on boards of a lot of companies, but pretty amazing. Information there. We have coaching circles, keynotes, a lot of great things. So please join us. We will be putting a code in before the end. If anybody wants to take advantage of a free 90-day WITI membership, we'll put a code in so you can do it. Thanks for having me. Oh, I can leave it open to questions. I don't want to mess up the time. I don't think I took all my time.
You have plenty of time for questions. So I think, David, one of the things that would be helpful to our community is, are there specifics to agility that are addressed within WITI, or is the broader scope the community of women at large? And are men welcome to attend?
Thank you. Men are very welcome to attend. We started WITI, it was in '89. Things were very different. We were working quite a bit with Silicon. We had clients up in the Silicon Valley and in LA where base was mostly aerospace and defense. But WITI was always meant for everybody working in those industries. Women, male allies, we didn't call them that at the time, but certainly had many participate, and in different roles, whether they were the software architect or the CIO or the marketing or PR person, as long as they'd work within our code of ethics, we wanted them to participate. So we knew at different stages of everybody's career, they'd need these different relationships and connections. So that's really what it is. As far as Agile, we do work with, it has been, I know we work with an Agile community in South Florida and Tampa and your team in Houston. So we've certainly been looking for more events and partners. And I know we usually have a few Agile events a year, but we'd love to do more, and especially hear from the community on what you would be looking for.
Thank you so
Did that
much. Yeah,
answer?
I just wanted to make sure, are there any questions that our guests tonight would like to ask WITI and David? Okay, and with that, I'm going to introduce our speaker for tonight for the icebreaker space. We have Denisha Jenkins, who goes by Nina.
Hi.
And hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
At a Google coaching circle meeting, and Denisha spoke to us about diversity and inclusion. And I think it was Nina as well as another speaker. And I'll tell you, in that 20 or 30 minutes that she spoke, there was just such a wealth of value that I gained about diversity and inclusion. And I don't know if most of you all feel kind of like this level of angst because things are changing and we're learning so much on a real-time basis. Even one of the questions developed in tonight's panel was as a result of the prep session, and Nina asking us, are you guys inclusive? Is this talk only welcome to cisgender? Which was like, okay. I didn't think about it in that level, or what kind of language we were using and whether it was in the language and the spelling inclusive. And so immediately we had her for the icebreaker, and all of the women agreed as panelists that we really wanted her to join us for the evening. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nina, where we're going to learn more about diversity and inclusion and some hot topics in the women's community.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so I do want it to be a little as interactive as I possibly can. So in the chat, if you could tell me what is your greatest stressor right now working during the year of COVID. So if you can type that in the chat, that would be helpful, because I just like to read the temperature of where people are today. So what's been your greatest stressor this year working in the year of COVID? And I just told Melissa earlier that I'll just kind of share just industry speaking wise some topics, because as a D&I strategist, I particularly focus in the areas of anti-racism, anti-bias, anti-oppression work within workplaces. And so anti-racism is a part of my everyday. It's more common of my conversation than it is for most people, anti-sexism and things of that nature. But what I will say across the industry, where there's been a lot of conversation, which I'm glad to see with WITI, is this conversation around psychological safety in the workplace, and organizations really having to expand that to how do we care for our employees and concerned about their wellness in the remote world. And so Zoom is blown up in its usership, but things that I just want to bring to mind for any of you who are leading conversations on Zoom, who are facilitating anything on Zoom, is to also think about any opportunities you can to spark team building and transparency and safety in these spaces, because at work, we could be at work. In Zoom, we're bringing people into our homes and we really don't have a choice. And so some people may not feel as safe, may feel less safe actually, working remotely than they did before. Some other things I've noticed with my tech clients in particularly is that somehow, which is something I just want you to think about, that somehow the people who are on their team are performing better on Zoom, on virtual, because they're not dealing with face-to-face discriminatory bias based on their size, their height, things that you see every day. And so it's just made it more easier for them to be themselves, to put themselves, take some risk at work. And so things I just wanted to point out around that is in regards to DEI is to really think about some of these intersections of experiences, like thinking about who on your team and your organization is not getting the luxury of working remotely and are having to be in the face and threat of danger, and thinking about what could we do as an organization to care for them. I think it's important for organizations and leaders to really think about reframing what we mean by caregiver right now, and not just limiting that to just people who have children, who are parents or guardians. We're all caring for other people at different times right now. So just thinking through what are ways that we could be a better support for those on our team. How can we show authentic curiosity for them, and to think of options, create intentional space to think of options to support the wellness of everyone on our team. So I'm seeing a couple of things around multitasking. I miss traveling as well. I'm married to a travel influencer, so my 2020 kind of went down the drain. Working longer hours, right? So there's the sentiment that people think you are more accessible and that you have way more time because you're at home, and I feel like I have less time. I feel like the day goes by faster. So if you're one of those people, you can give me a high five in the chat thing. And so just to kick off something fun, just to break the ice, I'm going to do a quick this or that exercise, because we've all probably had a really long work day. And I just kind of want to see who are my people here. So it's going to be a first one or two. So the first option, you just show me the first finger, your one finger. If you are in alignment with the second option, just show me two fingers. Okay. So is it coffee or tea? Coffee for one, tea for two. Let me see. Okay. All right. Sugar for one, honey for two. Okay. Now, if you are a meat eater, if you are not a meat eater, I apologize. If you're vegan, I apologize. Okay. So are you a breakfast sausage or are you a bacon person? Oh, okay. All right. And then French toast for one, pancakes for two. Okay. And then last, this is not that big of a deal, but we'll see. Are you a Netflix person for one or a Hulu person for two? Okay. Some people are really thinking it through. Okay. So I won't take up much time. I just wanted to welcome you all, say I'm excited to hear from you and to see where we have the areas that we are figuring out how we can stumble well as we develop in our careers, and how we can come along and support one another better. And I encourage you to ask great questions. I encourage you to be transparent and to follow up with one another, because networks are what are going to keep us safe and healthy during this time. Is I feel like now when we say how you're doing, people are way more transparent this year than they've ever been. So I just think I invite you to lean into this moment in ways that you can, but then also think about who in your organization are outliers and being intentional about bringing them into the fold and having conversations and creating authentic relationships right now, and having grace for one another, and really doing our own inner work around the biases we had about productivity and the assumptions we made about what it means to be successful or professional. We're just in a season of reframing that. So I encourage you all to do that well and stumble well and gracefully this year. So that'll be what I'm going to say for now, and I will turn it back over to you, Melissa.
Wow, thank you. And before taking the reins back, I just wanted to make sure, are there any questions you guys had for Nina? So she does this for a living. You can't really, knock her off her socks. Is there any question from a diversity and inclusion that you guys are curious about that you want to learn about? And we do have a Q&A after our panel discussion. So if the spirit doesn't move you right this moment, don't feel any pressure. We'll have time afterwards as well. I'm going to take the sharing the screen back. So you guys let me know when you can see.
We can see it. Oh, I can see it also.
Okay. So once again, for those of you guys that have snuck in while we were learning about both WITI and our D&I icebreaker, welcome to the Agile Leadership Network of Houston. My name is Melissa, but I represent the entire board and the entire community of ALN volunteers and also our guests that come out on a bi-monthly basis. We're so happy to have you. And so tonight, in case you missed it, we learned about WITI, which is a global organization, and they have a summit coming up. And I think Laura dropped the link in the chat there. So I definitely encourage you guys to check that out. Also, we heard from Nina Jenkins of Cardia Advisory. She's actually in Austin, Texas, which I think is pretty cool because a lot of times these people are outside of our community. And so she has a consultancy agency that helps companies transition and be healthier with their D&I. Next up, we're going to have a shameless photo opportunity. So if your hair is done or undone, or if you feel uncomfortable, we ask for people to take selfies and post them on LinkedIn if you're excited about tonight's event using hashtag ALNH and hashtag WITI for WITI. I'm going to go through the announcements, and then we're going to have our dynamic women. I'm going to introduce you guys to our facilitator, and she's going to introduce you to the panelists for tonight. We'll hear from some amazing women in leadership in the community, followed by our Q&A. So here it is, guys. This is our shameless photo opportunity. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment, and you guys can see all the tiles. And Wade showed us how you kind of just angle it to the side here and put your photo on. And this is just a really great way of being silly, really, and having fun for the holidays. By the way, I haven't gotten a really great photo. Wade seems to have this down pack where he always looks amazing in them. We should have a contest eventually where there's maybe a winner of who's really good at this. Erin has a picture of her taking the picture. And so you guys can see it typically takes more than one take to be an aficionado at this shameless photo opportunity, but it's really cool to kind of document when you see all the diversity and the different faces. So thank you guys for participating. Okay. And you guys should be seeing my screen again. Let me know if you can't. And next, we're free, kind of. So we ask you to help us grow by providing feedback. So if you take a screenshot of this little QR code, or Jonathan is going to drop it in the chat, we just ask that you open it up in a new link and you give us some feedback on what you thought about tonight's presentation, what went well for you, what didn't go so well, what you would like to see in the future. And so tonight, I'd like to give a special shout out again to WITI. We have David, also Jeff and Laura, and also Linda Ronastage, one of our advisory board members who help us put this together. And so if you can imagine, WITI is a more established group, so we thought it was really kind of them to take us on and partner with us in doing this talk. And also Laura just shared with us some tips and tricks about some things that they do during their talks that could help us grow. And so I think it's really cool to demonstrate through action how you can work together and not apart in terms of adding to the scope and really providing value to people. And so if you guys want to take a screenshot here of WITI and check them out later, like feel free to. Next up, we'd like to thank our sponsors. We have Cisco, Whitaker IT, Agile Earth, Evolve Agility, Culture Architect, VACA, the Agile Learning Academy. And if you're interested in becoming a sponsor, feel free to ask us. Some of the perks and benefits of sponsors are we post the training meetings. We also give you an opportunity in our vendor spotlight and our icebreaker section to really deliver value and organically connect with the community. So if you're interested in learning more about becoming a sponsor, reach out to us. And so here we like to be transparent as a board. And here are the people that I get to serve and lead and represent. Gilbert, Eva, Rich, Susmitha, and we also have open positions. We have a really cool community architect lead. We're interested in increasing our footprint. We have some really wonderful colleges and universities here in the Houston and greater Texas area. And we want to really do our teach backs by helping those students that are entering into their professional careers and exposing them to agility early on. We also have a volunteer lead position. So if you really like working with people and galvanizing people together, it's a really cool opportunity to join us. And last but not least, we have a social media. So we have, if you like to tweet or LinkedIn or connect with the community by delivering valuable information, just an hour or two out of your month would be of great value to us. Pay it forward. Join our tribe as a volunteer. You can contact us at info@alnhouston.org. Here are some of the upcoming events. So the Agile Learning Academy has a certified Scrum Master class and also Evolve Agility. These are really special classes in that they offer a lot of hands-on. I know specifically for Evolve Agility, they have bragged even pre-COVID that they do not have any PowerPoint decks and it's all hands-on. So if you're a kinesthetic or audio learner, these classes, both from Agile Learning Academy and Evolve Agility, are really great classes to consider taking if you're re-upping your certifications. Upcoming meetings. We have our last meeting for the year, which it's a party. So we ask you to save the date. Thus far, we have over $500 plus in giveaways and prizes. We're going to have Agile Bingo, name that tune. And so we ask you to bring your alcoholic or non-alcoholic drink of your naughty or nice choosing and come on December 3rd. If you'd like to register, Jonathan is going to share that in the link. But I think it's a really great way of inviting your peers and coworkers and kind of having a really fun party with them that you don't have to host or cook any food for. And so in getting in tonight's talk, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing tonight's facilitator. Roxanne Christopher Felton comes to us from a global energy oil and gas company, Chevron, and she has literally lived around the world as a servant leader for Chevron for over 10 plus years as a leader in that space. Providing value to them. And so currently she is serving as a release train engineer and coach for Chevron. And I don't know if Roxanne remembers, but years ago I was new to Houston and got my first big job consulting and had a really delicate situation. And my coworker said, I'll get my mentor to come over and help you. She'll know exactly what to do. And that was Roxanne. And I have to tell you, her decorum in the guidance that she gave me in resolving the issue not only left me in a place where I was able to provide immediate value to my client, who was Chevron at the time, a really great feedback, but I was able to develop an even closer relationship. And I think that's the reason that Roxanne has excelled so long in the space and in Chevron during such a volatile time in the energy industry as a leader. And it's a pleasure to bring her on tonight as a facilitator to introduce the panelists and to guide us through this really dynamic talk. So without further ado, Roxanne, I'm going to turn it over to you. And I think she may be on mute.
I think I was on mute. How about that? All right. Well, thank you so much for that awesome introduction. And if you know me, it doesn't matter who you are, if there's an issue or a problem, and if one of my mentees or someone that I'm coaching asked me to help, I'm going to dive in and help any and everybody. I'm just passionate about really what I do. But that's not why I'm here tonight. I am here to moderate an awesome panel of amazing women to talk about agility, agile in the workplace, agile all over the world, right? You will find that this panelist, these ladies, they have diverse backgrounds. They have started agile transformations, just a wealth of knowledge. And believe me, if you give us your attention, you won't be disappointed. So before we get started, I'd like to talk a little bit about our guiding principles for this evening. Okay, so when we actually, after I introduce our panelists, I'm going to ask some questions. And believe me, these are not that, oh, tell us what you think type questions. These are wicked, these are different. These are awesome questions that will challenge them to share with us their knowledge on the topic. Okay, I'm going to select two that will give us some details about how they feel or their background on the topic. And then I'm going to open it up to the rest of the panelists to provide details or to give us what they think. You know, it's a good response to kind of close it out. Okay, you'll hear me as the moderator talk about keeping us on track, and you'll hear my code word. I am telling it to you guys, sorry. It's called time check. That means we have about 30 seconds to. All right, so let me introduce you to our awesome ladies, awesome women, and that's W-O-M-E-N and W-O-M-Y-N, right? All right, you guys get that, don't you? Well, let me introduce you to our first powerhouse. Her name is Shayna Atkins. She brings us a breadth and depth of experience in agile transformation, systems coaching. She works with different companies to understand how that workforce can leave a seat at the table for all women in technology. She wants to and has experience in developing the next generation of thought leaders and tech innovators through innovative product management, systems improvement, and design. She is what we call a powerhouse, an innovative leader in all that she does. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Shayna. All right, let me introduce you to Katherine. She's an associate director at Maximus International. Guess where, you guys? In Australia. And she's been recognized as one of Australia's 29 inspirational women making waves in STEM. She's a global leader. I'm sorry, did I say global leader? With extensive experience in technology, telco, various industries, a very diverse background, I would say, Katherine. Thank you. She has held many senior level positions. She is very comfortable influencing management that focuses on global impact and world technology enablement. She's lived around the world, right? Has worked throughout the world, 20 different countries. She loves, I don't know who really likes risk and compliance, but she does. She enjoys strategic execution, NPS measurement, and digital enablement. I would say another powerhouse on the panel tonight. All right, let's move on to Nina, or I should say, officially, Denisha Jenkins. She is the founding chief executive officer at her own group, Cardia Advisory Group. It's a niche management consulting firm that focuses on cultivating diverse organizations. I think we heard from her earlier. So again, thank you so much for joining us, Nina, tonight. And now let's talk about Miss Erin, calling Miss Erin. She's a longtime Agile coach who, like myself, has a deep passion for serving people, teams, organizations, and helping them transform. An Agile transformation leader, Agile coach. She enjoys being a servant leader. How many of you really understand what that is? If you don't, give Erin a call. She's also one of the co-founders of the Agile coaching circles, and she co-leads the Agile Austin Coaching Group. Oh, wow. Let's go ahead and give us a little round of applause for all of our panelists. What an amazing group of ladies, women that we have that will help us with our panel tonight. Okay, are you guys ready? Are you guys ready for the first question?
Yes.
All right, all right, all right. So let's have our first question. I'm going to read the question, and then I'm going to select our first panelist. All right, is there a way to prevent the move to agility from becoming a lateral move versus a true career transition? I'd like to hear from Erin.
So number one, thank you, Roxanne. I'd also like to thank you for, this was a big question and it took me a little bit to peel it apart and my thinking on it. I went back and I looked at it. How do we help, a transition to agility to being a true career move rather just a lateral move? And in my thinking, it is really around this: show me the value. Do not let, an Agile certification simply just as a way for a company to keep the status quo, but rather agility is the way that we do things. If a transition to agility brings value, i.e. higher quality products being brought to market in lower time, reduced turnover, greater organizational alignment, or the ability to pivot more quickly and respond to market shifts, then I think that's going to make that a true career transition, not just a lateral move. I would like to point out, though, that more and more organizations consider themselves to be agile, and we can have the argument later about whether or not they truly are. But more employees will have only known agility as the way that teams function. Right. Lateral move versus transition, that's going to be simply giving way to, this is how we work. This is how we get things done. But the bottom line is, if you want a transition to agility to be a true career, shift upward, not just a lateral move, show me the value. That is how I want to respond to that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Shayna.
Yeah. Thank you, Roxanne, for an amazing introduction. I'm so happy to be here. And just to kind of add to what Erin was saying, I believe that in lean and agile organizations, the true purpose is to really kind of create a way of working that is beneficial to the knowledge worker. And within that, you want mastery, autonomy, and purpose. I think what ends up happening is that at the end of an agile transformation or a digital transformation, you might have a lean agile organization that is a little bit flatter, right? The roles are a little bit different. And so folks are wondering, what exactly does this mean for my career? I think that at the end of the day, in order to get that kind of upward career, trajectory, which we all want and hope for, it is about kind of positioning ourselves in a way that we're moving the needle on these three things, whether it's more mastery, more autonomy, more purpose, and just making sure that from a human resources perspective, that we're demonstrating that value, and then there's a position for us to get rewarded for that value in return. So that's my response to that question.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to open this up to our other panelists. You guys have anything to add?
I think the thing I would add, Roxanne, is that if we've learned anything from this year is that everything has been accelerated, whether it be acceleration of digital adoption of technologies, acceleration of flexible work practices, acceleration on people using foresight to scenario plan and model options and look for signals as opposed to kind of standard 1, 3, 5 year strategy planning. And it also is true of reskilling and upskilling the workforce. I think the latest McKinsey paper says that 92 million Americans will go through some form, that's 50% of skilled workforce and technology workforce will go through some form of reskilling over the next 1 to 3 years. And when you look at that level of upskilling and reskilling, I hope it's dominated by women. I hope it's dominated by BIPOC, technologists. I hope that people are leaning into the opportunity that exists by expanding the edge of your competence and see it as a way to set themselves to accelerate their career moves. And so I think that for me, I would let go of the sideways and take forward the I'm accelerating the edge of my competency as a more helpful reframe when looking at that question.
Okay.
I really love that. I love that accelerating the reframe. I think that's wonderful, where it's gradual, but it's going to really go into higher gear. Yeah.
Okay, any other panelists would like to comment? Okay, awesome conversation there. Thank you so much. All right, well, let's move on. How can white women who are allies demonstrate greater allyship? I'd like to hear from Katherine on this one to start us off.
Thanks, Roxanne. I think it begins with understanding the impact you want to have. Quite often, big problems like diversity, all forms of diversity, whether it be gender, whether it be cultural, whether it be religious, whether it be neurodiversity or ableism, sometimes the problem can seem too big to solve. And when you look at it through the lens of I am but one person, but what you do have the ability to do is impact one meaningful interaction, one person at a time. So whether it's volunteering your time on a panel, whether it's having a coaching session, for me, one of the biggest lessons I learned as I fought to get through to the ceiling into executive leadership here in Australia was that it wasn't just about punching through the glass with one hand, it was also having one hand back ready to pull the next person with me. And that means that I won't speak on a panel unless there is diversity on it. I quite often will hold panels that invite me to speak as the woman in tech to challenge them about their diversity on that panel. And I think that that's the only way we do it. Each panel, each hiring opportunity, each way that we give back, it's just one mindful decision at a time is the way that we have the biggest impact. And I think for me, it's understanding my privilege too. I think that quite often people that are in positions of privilege don't have the grace to acknowledge it and the grace to understand that opportunities come their way more easily than others. And so particularly if there is something that I think part of someone in my network is going to be more effective at, or that I can't do, I don't simply knock that opportunity back and say no and move on. I'll say, I can't do it, but this person would be amazing. Let me introduce you. So that even though it might not be something that you can fulfill, you're actually sharing the opportunities that come your way across your network.
Love that. Very well spoken. Let's see. I think I'm going to throw the ball over to Erin.
So I don't think I'm really going to add much to this than what Katherine already said. Whenever, as Agile coaches, we begin looking at a new organization or team, one of the first things that we're taught to do is go and listen, observe and watch. And yeah, let's take a look around and make certain that we are being mindful. But I also think the answer here in some parts of this is quite simple. Invite others to the table, particularly if they don't look like us. And if that means giving up my seat, then by all means, please take my seat. Asking big, generous questions of those people so that we have a better sense of who they are and what's happening for them, so that my understanding is more grounded in reality and in listening. I need to fade into the background more, connect, refer, just like Katherine said, advocate when no one is looking. I once heard a description of Hillary Clinton's time in the United States Senate for New York as more workhorse, less show horse. And I actually really love that phrase, because it just means, hey, I'm here to get the job done, not just to take, the pretty side of things. I believe very strongly in mentorship and in making myself available for mentoring for people that desire to do that work. I wrote about it not too long ago as mentorship is planting trees under which I will never enjoy the shade. And I believe strongly in that model and in humility. We cannot do this work without being mindful of, the people that have come before us and making room for the people that will come after, and really just shamelessly showing up for one another. An emphasis on that adverb there, shamelessly. Make it clear.
All right. Let's open it up for input from any of our other panelists.
Yeah, I'd like to add. I would say I try, one of my stretching goals for the past, 10 years has been, because I'm a Brene fan, but has been the vulnerability. And I think you can't be in this DEI space or idea space, whichever language you're using, without doing that work. It's ongoing. And so for me, I can be transparent in that sharing. For me, a pain point actually was my experience working with white women. So of all the groups that I've had to work with, that as a collective has been the hardest in my professional and academic career. Most of my pains around race came directly from white women. And so moving to Austin, I had to take a risk on a friendship and just kind of being transparent of like, hey, you want to be my friend and you want to understand all of these things. In order for me to be authentic and for you to really get something out of this, I have to be clear that I can't carry your weight. You're going to have to do your work in this relationship for this to be mutually beneficial. And I think the more comfortable as a Black woman, that was something I had to, do in order for myself with protection, but then also giving people the opportunity to stumble but to stumble well. And I think for people who want to be allies, and I have to do this work myself in other areas where I hold privilege, is recognizing it's not a title that I get to give myself. It's an honor that someone else gets to call me an ally. And so for me, I think for when it comes to, if we're talking about race for white women, it's just recognizing like how to hold yourself accountable when you mess up, and having people around you who you can take that feedback, like building that muscle, because where we need you to have the most impact is not just when you're around women of color and having conversations, when you're not around us and you're in spaces where it's predominantly white. Or, you know, the people who are in your family in those relationships, that immediate circle, a sphere of influence is the greatest impact you could have, especially when we're talking about raising up the next leaders, raising up women who are going to be filling this pipeline of professionals. Those relationships and the language we use, and it's a thing, I didn't think it was a long time ago when Anderson Cooper did an exercise about families in America that would tell their kids verbally, we treat everyone the same. But people around you pay attention to you. The way you move in the world is the best observation of teaching. So if you're saying you're sitting on panels or you're writing posts or any of those social media things, you're promoting inclusion, but people don't see you really invested in someone's life, your message is incongruent. So I think for me, that would be, as a person who would be on the receiving side of an allyship friendship, that's where I think that's where the real work is. That's where the metal really hits the road, is I see you going through the hard things with me and having rough days, and if we need a glass of wine, we're crying over the same thing. It's not you crying because I'm sad and you're sad that I'm sad, you know, we're in this arm in arm. So I think that would be one of the things that, you know, that's really stand out when I talk about allyship.
So Nina, where do you need my shoulder? Where do you need my arm more?
Yeah, where I need it more, I think, honestly, from the groups that I'm mentoring, one of the things has to deal with money. Conversations around money. I think that is, and not even in the sense of like, hey, just give money, but I think recognizing the privilege around money systems and things like negotiation, things like, you know, I have more friends now who are in the tech or in the VC space who've been a part of mutual funds for a long time, and they've just hoarded that skill and that gift. And there's so many women that they're working around who would love to be investing and having plans for their portfolio and their retirement, who don't have any access to that information, right? And so a lot of the dismantling of these systems have to do with the money system. So even that kind of like sharing of knowledge, not in like I'm your teacher, but like when you get something, the best gift is like to multiply that and give that information. And that's usually what I take in information. I like to teach people all the little things that I know. So that's where I get the most impact in my life, you know, money. I'll say that for myself. That is a big thing. Money, knowing money and money rules is a big game changer.
Check. All right. Good conversation. And I love the statement, invite everyone to the table. Invite everyone to the table. Love that. Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to our next question. What are some emerging roles and areas that you see agility?
Sorry, Roxanne, because if it's not your dog, it was going to be my dog who's knocking at the door.
Okay, all right. What are some emerging roles and areas that you see agility growing to incorporate? Sorry about that. All right, so I'm going to throw it over to Shayna. You've been quiet.
Hi there. And so just to repeat your question, you're asking what are some emerging roles and areas that you see agility growing to incorporate? And so I'm going to answer this question in two ways. I think that there are, you know, roles that are in agility kind of when an organization is actually going agile, and you might go from, you know, a traditional role, you might see, you know, a shift towards maybe a product owner, scrum master, release train engineer, product management. I think that those are kind of like the natural set of roles that are available when you see an organization first move or transition. But I think that when it comes to emerging roles in organizations that are already in the throes of it, already kind of going down their journey, it's really about domain, like diversifying in domain expertise. So I would say, you know, really getting to know an area of business deeply, and building out of those T-shaped skills, so to speak. I would say that there is, just from the perspective of also like really kind of an understanding the breadth of tools that are within that your department or that your team is using, and like really kind of getting familiar with new features within tools, because like Katherine brought up, the organizations are accelerating really quickly, and that means so are all the partners that we use to make our jobs easier. So, you know, being that person who understands metrics, reporting, data, like you understanding and really gaining skills in those areas, I think really helps. And so, yeah, that's how I would answer that question on a surface level. And then I know we're handing it off to Erin.
I will pick that up then. Thank you, Shayna. So I took this question a little bit different direction because I thought it more about terms of areas, not, you know, just within organizations. And I don't know that I see it so much as taking over, but really mixing in. When I think about this, I don't necessarily just do agile transformations. I simply do transformations with, you know, agility being one of the philosophies or frameworks that I bring in to support that transformation. Personally, I've done or am doing agile implementations in some pretty strange places. You know, I've done this in veterinary clinics, electrical engineering. That was also some manufacturing. But the one I'm really excited about right now is actually over in the mining industry. And the reason I think about this, you know, not just from agility, but from an overall coaching, is that, you know, because there's the aspect of bringing in women from different, you know, African nations, Australians and Aboriginal Australians, but it's doing an underpinning of Agile, but bringing in that people side as well. You know, Shayna mentioned the ability for metrics and data and to really back up decisions that we make. And I think that is of incredible importance, because when you can help people see, you know, the data behind, you know, and how it's improving that decision, I think we have better transformations overall. But also we're really developing, you know, Agile coaches with deep tool sets and experience. And, you know, it's that deep tool set, I think, that I'm after so much, and wanting to help see that with other people as well. So, yeah.
Okay. Any additional comments from our panelists?
I would just say, to piggyback off of what Erin is saying, I'm also seeing, she kind of talked about coaching across an organization. I'm seeing a lot of shift towards product thinking as an overall organizational strategy. And so I think that, you know, product is like really kind of understanding kind of product and product development, product management as a mindset is a really good direction to go in terms of understanding emerging trends in the transformation space as well.
Okay. Good piggyback. All right, you guys. Let's move on to our next exciting question. As our definition of women, W-O-M-E-N, is expanding to W-O-M-Y-N, I feel like a cheerleader, W-O-M-Y-N. What are ways we can be more inclusive? And you already know who I'm going to first.
Yeah, so this one's I'm gonna try to make this as simplified as I possibly can, because there's culture is dynamic, so language is always evolving and it's dynamic as well. So there are lots of school of thoughts about if you should be using a Y, if you should be using an X. There's just so many, and I won't go into all of that. But what I will say is that I think one way you could be more inclusive as individuals and as leaders within organizations and as a community is to be involved and have relationships with the communities that are historically outliers, because you don't want to create things or create events without them a part of that process. I know a lot of people love to quote Verna Brown, which I love, diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being invited to dance. But to me, I'm really big on equity. You cannot really have inclusion without equity. And equity is looking at who's a part of planning. Inclusion deals with shifting power dynamics. And so if you have those who maybe express their gender in more feminine ways or less feminine ways, making sure that you're creating spaces where people along the gender spectrum who identify as women, and whether they're trans women or if they are, more androgynous, however they express themselves, how they identify, you want to create a space in which they can still show up to the space and their voice is valued and you want to hear from them. So it's connecting through relationships, through communities and groups that are organizing to create change in the same industry. There are a lot of affiliations and chapters and organizations within tech sectors and all the different organizations that you can make relationships with. Bringing them into events, whether it's through sponsorship or sponsoring and coming alongside in their events and building authentic bridges of work that you could collaborate on. And language is one way, but I think it's really I come from a grassroots organizing background. Sometimes I joke about being an artist trapped in corporate America for a long time. So I came from the community has the answers. And I think, as I was saying again about psychological safety, it's really shifting this mindset that only one group knows how to solve a problem. And that's just how we've been conditioned to look at power dynamics. Power is a position that says, I know what the problem is, I can tell you what the problem is, and I also am going to tell you how you're going to solve it. And so to be inclusive, you really have to get comfortable with it taking a longer time. And you have to get comfortable with not knowing the right answers and making mistakes. It's a different experience. And so to be inclusive, you really want to have these ongoing conversations in which the community is informing, how are we going to solve and make more access and more opportunities for women at large? And intersectionally, what are the issues that women of color, what are the issues that are unique to Indigenous women or Black women or Latino women and Asian women? What are unique to those communities, and how can we come together in a universal design and the solution to that? And if you're not a part of those marginalized groups, having those conversations in which we figure out, how can I best support you? What kind of support do you want versus me telling you how I'm going to do it? So I think those are like the starting things. It starts with relationships, but with a strategic mindset of what are we up against so that we can come at it from all the different angles and all the different vantage points.
Nina, I love that. I love that you start with the question, what kind of support can I offer? What what do you need, rather than, me telling you, oh, here, I'm going to do this for you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Katherine, do you have anything to add?
I think for me too, one of the things that stood out for me as a thing I've learned throughout my time is that when you're trying to achieve or make a difference, you can over collaborate and get in the way of yourself. And I notice a lot of organizations, particularly non-for-profit groups I work with, can do that, like get in their own way. And so I also think you just need to set a framework or an operating rhythm within the teams that you work within to have your truth teller to be saying, this is the outcome, just like you would do if you were doing a flap at the end of a 2-week delivery sprint, to say, this is the outcome we were expecting to achieve. Have we made progress towards that outcome, or are we over collaborating or letting perfection get in the way of progress? So I also think that with the business of inclusion, that is also what happens a lot of the time. We try and go, what is the policy that needs to be changed? And what does the document need to look like? What does the governance need to look like? What do the metrics need to look like? Whereas in my experience, and if I use my experience at, at Telstra, we simply said, what if we removed all the rules? What if we actually said all roles are flexible? And if you want a role to not be flexible, the onus isn't on the person that is seeking, like applying for a role to be flexible. The onus is on a business leader to send a letter to the CEO to explain why a role can't be flexible or why a role can't be job shared. So I also think some of it is just the power of reframe and working out what could we take away from this dynamic, or flipping, looking at the polar opposite view is often a way to make really meaningful progress against some of those gnarly and wicked problems that we're all trying to move forward on the agenda. Like, I'm impatient. I don't want to wait 105 years for my daughters to achieve pay equity. Like, I'm done with that. That's unpalatable for me. So, and that's just one problem I care about. So I kind of go, what is the path of least resistance that I can say that is not acceptable? And then start making meaningful progress on that.
Okay, let's open it up. Any additional comments on this topic? Okay, let's keep rolling. Next question. What advice you have to women, WOMYN, who are stuck in middle management? And let's see. Woo, that's a tough one, Katherine. Over to you.
There's like so many things I wish I could say to my 25-year-old self. But the first would be is that you are enough. And when I say you're enough, I actually mean you are enough of whatever it is you need to be whatever it is you want to achieve in your career and in fact your life. And it's so easy to listen to the labels. You get so many labels throughout your education. She's bossy, she's dominating, she's too quiet, she's too this, she's too that. Society seems to just openly commentate on how women participate. And you can actually spend a disproportionate amount of your energy carrying those labels around. You'll have one performance review where someone said she's too direct, or she's cold, or she's this, and you carry that one snippet of that one conversation as a label plastered to your being that you then carry on your soul throughout every interaction you have. And it's really important to be conscious of the labels that you attach to yourself. You're in complete control of your brand and your narrative that you're saying internally. So I wish that I had owned my own narrative and my own brand much earlier on in my career, because it gives you clarity for what you will and won't accept. And I think that quite often I found myself thinking that if I worked really hard and did the work and over-delivered, that my dues would come, that I would get that promotion. And instead, I saw many people get promoted above me, and I realised that I wasn't owning the space and I wasn't owning my voice and brand, and I wasted a decade being stuck in the middle. The other thing that that stands out for me, for people that do feel stuck in that career move, in that next move, and the next choice, is to read the signals. There's that movie in that book, he's just not into you. Like, I should have worked out after 2 years of not making progress that it was time to move on to the next leader. I was like, one more release, one more product delivery, one more transformation, one more year. 10 years later, I've wasted a decade in middle management.
Yes.
Within 6 months of me saying, nope, I'm no longer doing this, I went from middle management to C-suite to a chief operating officer in an $8 billion company. And it was because I said this, I finally recognized he's never going to be that person. And I'm going to keep moving until I find the male champion that I'm looking for, the female champion that I'm looking for, that will help me accelerate the next level in my career. And now my mission is to be that person for others that are trying to navigate their way through as well. Because there's they call it the glass ceiling and the glass cliff, but it's also the glass labyrinth that we all have to navigate through when stuck in the middle.
Yes.
And I think the way you break through that labyrinth is backing yourself and having clarity on your purpose and your brand and, what you want to leave behind in the world and whether or not you're doing it. So are you working in purpose and bringing it to life? Because you shine brighter when you are. And the other thing is that, don't work for someone that hasn't helped you accelerate and move within 2 years, because it's time to go. It's time to move on.
All right. Time to move on. Time to move on. Love that. All right, Shayna, thoughts?
Yes, so I am going to just bring up the fact that during these times, especially right now, kind of this recession is disproportionately affecting women more than men. So women are, from an unemployment standpoint, globally 1.8 more times likely to find themselves out of a job. In addition to that, I think there was a McKinsey and Lean In study where it was 54% of mid-management to senior level women who were experiencing burnout in comparison to 41% of men. And then we're just like in a time where especially women who find themselves in caregiver roles or in caregiver status are really just kind of being impacted by the times that we are in now, and that disproportionately affects Black women. So the reason why I say that is because I thought that it was relevant to bring up that no matter what's going on, if you're stuck in middle management, if you've actually had to just like take some have to reduce hours or move to part-time, etc., that you are always the chief visionary officer of your own personal brand, meaning that no matter what's going on, you own your brand and what you do and with your time. So I think Katherine brought up an excellent point, is like, you are not a tree, you can move, right? But there's also kind of, what do I do in the middle to position myself for that? And I believe that, taking on volunteer roles or upskilling or reskilling or just doing, the small things to really build your personal brand holistically, those things help in conversations where you have to advocate for yourself as you grow through a leader. And then I think making sure that you do have the right mentor, sponsor, and that you are, working for the right manager or leader, because people do not quit jobs, they quit their managers and bosses. So I guess that's really what I would have to say on that subject, is just remember, no matter what your circumstances, that you are the chief visionary officer of your own personal brand, and you can make a difference in your brand that can make a difference in how you accelerate your own career.
Additional comments, Rose?
I was just gonna say applaud both of you, because I think that was the huge jump for me leaving being an employee. Having always had an entrepreneurial, I've always had my own business on the side. I've always had and then once I became into an organization, I got sucked right back into that, like grinding and building someone else's dream. So I love that chief visionary officer stuff, but also I'm communal. So I love, like, wherever I'm going, I'm looking for these networks of friendships and connections, because I believe that everyone brings some type of nugget or something that I can benefit from. And I think the greatest shifts in my life have been people who I used to work with. Like, I still get client referrals from people I worked with 10 years ago, and thinking that time didn't matter. And I think when I was feeling stuck, I just had to talk to other people to get unstuck, because I was spinning my wheels of trying to think. I had to figure it out, and I needed a sounding board. And so I would say that was one of the things, is like not trying to find all the solutions in isolation. Because I think that's one of the things that leads to, whether it's compassion fatigue or burnout or whatever language you want to put to it, is when you're in isolation trying to solve the problem, instead of having some people who can to hear back from, and like, hey, you already have everything in front of you. You just need to choose A, B, or C. You know, like I had to have someone at lunch tell me, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? What is the worst dream you have about quitting this job? And they're like, that's not a realistic thing. Just quit the job. And I went back to work and put in my resignation over one lunch, right? So it's just, sometimes you just need to make sure you're not isolating yourself to get unstuck.
I've heard so many great things, Chief Visionary Officer, Glass Labyrinth here. I guess I would phrase it this way: show the F up for yourself, okay? Because no one else is going to. I think all four of us here on this panel, we all have our own businesses. We've all struck out on our own. And I'll be honest, the best way to blast myself out of a problem was to go out on my own. And yes, the rewards are greater here. The terrors are greater too sometimes. But, hey, show the F up for yourself. And those of you who know me know that I would normally never censor myself that way. So, I'll give you the unfiltered version later.
Okay, I know. Yes, he said it. Show the for yourself. For you, for yourself. Okay, so let's piggyback off of that for a moment. We have, again, this awesome panel. Oh, I'm just in awe of you guys. I could say I own my own business as well. So, but I don't. So now I'm still in corporate America. What 3 skills do I need, or that you think are important for us, right, in cultivating leadership? My leadership to grow, for me to grow as a leader. Erin, you were passionate about
what 3 skills do we need as leaders?
Yes.
Number 1, I think this is a different version of, physician, know thyself, but it's really to thine own self be true. And it's a very clear grasp of your ethics and what your values are. I think so many of us kind of get, waffling around and trying to fulfill someone else's dream of what those skills are. We forget that. And that skill of really knowing yourself and knowing what is important to you and what you hold dear and valuable. Second skill, tenacity, grit. Okay. We need more of that in everyone we know. People who are going to be like, no, I'm going to hold on to this. This means so much to me that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this dream come true. And that might be reskilling, upskilling, going back to school sometimes in those instances, taking that pill and saying, if this is what I want, what do I need to do to get there? Number 3, a leadership skill. I think it's humility. And that's sometimes asking for help, asking for mentorship, articulating, what we need to get what we need.
Okay, I like that. Too.
I feel like that was a continuation of the last question too, in some ways.
Absolutely. Okay. I think Nina, you want to add something?
3, you said 3 things, right? 3 skills?
Yeah, 3, please.
I definitely am on the grit, tenacity board. I think strategic thinking is one of my, and that's because I'm biased and I love strategy, but I think being able to see pathway thinking for me has been helpful for creating my own path and my own lane. I think skill, I want to say intercultural and interpersonal communication skills. I think I'm a big person on what's in it for me. And if I can't articulate it and I can't get other people behind it, and I can't really assess a need or, communicate where I'm taking people, then it doesn't really matter. So I think you do need some communication skills for leadership, basic, like whether you're leading in your home, your neighborhood, or in the corporate space. And I also think I am also on the board of humility, because I think that is having some foresight of like where you're growing, where your limitations are, and being able to recognize that you don't have it all together, you won't know everything, and that's okay. And being willing to let other people speak into where you need to grow or stretch, or where you need to be guided. I think being able to step back and then knowing when to step up are important skill sets for leadership. So I will say also humility.
I'm also going to second Nina though on communication. Katherine, you had really great, that list of 5 there.
Yeah, I'm like going through your like purpose, yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, may I ask in regards to skills, like, are these the easiest? I don't know if I would say these are the easiest to cultivate, but some of them I think are naturally in there. You just kind of really need to know how to
bring them forth.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Yes.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it also comes down to practice of it. So if I think about purpose, so much of the time we waste in our careers and our life is because we've drifted from our center. So how regularly are you checking in on how you're going against your purpose? Are you living your purpose? Are you fulfilling your purpose? Are you building the legacy you want to leave behind you on this earth? Mm-hmm. So being anchored in purpose, and how on center are you or off center are you in terms of how you're anchored to your purpose. And for some people it's, do I have clarity on what my purpose is? Because for me, purpose is like an onion. You kind of peel back layers on your purpose throughout your life, and it shifts and evolves. But so regularly checking in and making sure you're remaining anchored to purpose is important. And I think it's important because it leads to my second point, which is about clarity and conviction. Nina, you light up the screen because of the energy you inject, because of the conviction you have. And that is true of any leader. There are 2 types of leaders. There are leaders that inject energy into the room, and there are leaders that suck the energy out of the room. And people want to work for leaders and are drawn to the electricity and energy of leaders that have clarity on purpose and conviction on the job to be done. The third thing is, which I think is the most important, particularly leading hybrid teams, is that you, and by the way, it's kind of the boys club reverse engineered into a leadership skill, is if you haven't worked out yet that the fastest way to achieve things in life is through your ability to facilitate and grow trust and be a trust broker, and in order and enable your team and the people you work with to build collective trust. I promise you, your tribe having collective trust will move a mountain, and you'll still be working out how to pack your backpack and walk up the mountain. So being a trust broker, if you haven't worked on doing any trust work yet and exploring psychological trust and collective trust, please, please, please do it. There are 3 ingredients to trust. 1 is having clarity on purpose. 2 is understanding what scares you. 3 is understanding what the next best action to take. And then the 4th is sharing it with someone and helping them get you over the edge to jump out of the plane and move forward. And in that moment of sharing, you've created a moment of vulnerability, reciprocal vulnerability, and trust is created in that moment. So understanding how are you going with your trust skills and being a trust broker is important. Similarly, courage, right? Courage, again, individual courage and grit is one thing. I promise you, it's how I've grafted the slow way in terms of individual grit and courage. I've become far more effective when I've enabled 2,000 people that are working, inside my organization to build collective courage. It's the collective courage that achieves, it's that saying that, ordinary people achieve extraordinary things. That's collective trust in action. So again, how do you create an environment where there is safety to talk about, what the peak of the week, I call it peak, pit, and pivot. What is the peak of the week? What is the pit of the week? And what is the thing I learned that I'm going to pivot next week? So you create a culture where it is safe for people to share good news. It's safe for people to share bad news, mistake, and to share misses and fails and course corrections, because we are all human, and course correction is definitely going to be the game over the next decade. And finally, it starts with the end in mind. Those that start with the end in mind are the people that have left the biggest impacts on this earth. So when you're looking to get out of the starting gate on a problem or a wicked problem you're starting to solve for, fast forward a year, fast forward 5 years, start with the end in mind, put a picture of that outcome, put it somewhere front and center in your life. In Australia, we have an athlete called Cathy Freeman. You'll have seen her at the Olympic Games 2000 in Sydney, Australia. And she was the first Indigenous Australian to stand with the flag and run a gold medal and win the 400 metres gold medal. At 8 years of age, she wrote on a piece of paper that she will run the 400 metres final in the Olympics and she will win the gold medal. And that was on her mirror since she was 8 years old. So some of the most amazing things have been achieved in this world by starting with the end in mind and being obsessed about that outcome.
Okay, like it. All right, additional comment? Yes, that was
Something in the chat. I'm sure.
Yeah,
quite impactful. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I am one that loves to give certification. I love training. So what advice do you give to women and or women, WOMYN, who keep gaining all of these Agile certifications in the hopes of qualifying for an Agile leadership role? Me. How can I move to that role? How can I do that? Love certification. All right, Erin.
I knew this was coming my way because I'm like, as probably the most over certified person here, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to draw that fire. So number one, experience will always trump certification or training. If you can go get the experience of doing that, by all means, go get that first. And if you want to, circle back later and get whatever credentials are required for that. I also want to point out that I feel that there is a big difference between training and certification. And what I mean by that is it's one thing to do the training to say, oh, I know about something. But when I talk about certification, it's where I had to go, log hours against that practice, or I had to go pass assessments, and not just, the original Scrum Master certification exam, which was were you remotely paying attention at all. These are those big certification exams where they, you have to demonstrate the skill and people are, qualifying you and ranking you in that. I think there's a difference between training and certification. But I'll be honest, everybody, I stopped caring about certification so much when I started thinking about what the goal that I had for teams or organizations was. And I just started viewing some of this work as really adding to my skill set, adding to my tool belt, and making me a better practitioner, a better craftsperson at what it is that I do. Once I started looking at it from that standpoint, it was just made it a lot easier for me.
Okay.
And I don't know if that was really helpful towards, getting it towards a role or anything, but yeah.
I agree, Erin. I think the other thing too is that quite often we are taught that as women, we need the pieces of paper to have the ticket to the game, to be the person, to have the resume that says that you're going to get the same level of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not true. Like, it's the reality is that you can over credential at the end. People overinvest and over-credentialize themselves and underinvest in relationship building and networking and expanding the garden of opportunities they're putting out into their networks instead. So I would say there's a point of diminishing returns on credentialing that people, in particularly women, misstep on. And that same amount of time that you're spending on getting credentialized, you should be there reaching out to people that you desperately want to work for, and starting to build those relationships that while there might not be an opportunity now, in a year's time, in 2 years' time, in 3 years' time, when your paths will cross, like, you'll create that future that you're looking for. So I would also say that's the hard bit. The hard bit is cold reaching out to people you don't know and trying to work out, how do I network my way into that environment? I wish that we were spending more time working on that and less time on over-credentializing ourselves, because that's where all the job market that exists, where all the jobs you can't see, are the ones that happen in those coffees. The job offers that happen directly in those coffee meetings, as opposed to the credentializing side of things.
A friend of mine, we were in the Peace Corps together. She's from Atlanta, Georgia. And when she was out looking for a new position, she set a goal for herself of having 30 coffee meetings in a month to go meet people who might help her be able to get to the position she was looking for. She wound up having 90 meetings because they'd say, well, I'm not the person to help you, but so-and-so might be. She had to switch from coffee to water because she was starting to get jittery just because she'd met so many people. But the thing is, not only did she wind up getting the position that she wound up with a better one. Okay. But Shayna, I feel like we're excluding you, and I want to bring you forward into this conversation.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think you guys are just hitting the nail on the head. I think what I was just going to say, I was going to bring a real life experience into it, but I have been probably in 3 or 4 major kind of organizational change efforts in relation to who are the right people for the right positions that we're going to consider for roles. And time again, the post-it notes that go on the wall or the organizational charts that are created are from people who are known versus people who have all of the credentials. And so I'm just saying, from personal experience of someone who kind of advises in this space very often, that take someone to coffee or, being just vocal about what you have achieved. I think there's also a lot, I find that women sometimes are like knocking it out the park, but they expect someone to see that effort versus being vocal and kind of, hey, I just wanted to let you know this and this happened, or we got this quick win or small win, because those things matter when it comes to the decision of a person being chosen for a particular role or position. So that's all I wanted to bring to the table, as some, like, from the other side of it, that it really does make a difference.
Yeah.
So has anyone ever heard, there's that Glennon Doyle quote, "The braver I am, the luckier I get." People, go get brave, get out there.
Right.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I might add, I would say, like, all of everything everyone said, but especially like the end of Shayna, like, I think for myself, for a long time, before I moved to Austin, I was considering moving to New Zealand for my PhD. And so a lot of my friends in my circle for years are like, do you need the PhD? They just kept telling me, like, why are you going back to school? And it made me think of when LinkedIn first started. I don't know, I'm aging myself, but when LinkedIn first started, I used to go on there and reach out to women specifically who were in the industry of work that I wanted to do or jobs that I was curious about. And I'll never forget talking to a consultant in Atlanta, and I was like, there's no clear blueprint, like, there's no pathway to this doesn't make any sense. I don't even know, do we just make up the job title? How do we do this work? And she was like, you just run in the lane of where your gifts are. You already know plenty. And I was still, I don't know, maybe I wasn't even grad school yet. So she's like, you already know plenty. You've already done enough work in this space. You really need to carve your lane and really focus on your brand and do what you do well, and not worry about getting all of these certifications right now and getting degrees. And so I think one of the shifts for me was like being around like some phenomenal women definitely helped me to realize like I don't need more letters. Similar to what Katherine said, I'm already enough. I'm brilliant enough right now, and I have enough curiosity that I can think through questions that people haven't thought of yet and work on those solutions now. And I can go ahead and create my own lane and build something that other people will be attracted to. I don't need the validation because those systems don't work for me. They're not designed for me. So for me to keep investing my time and my money and my energy in that doesn't serve me, and people are waiting. Whoever on here needs to know that there are people waiting for you to just show up already. So like whatever that thing is, like there's young women, there's women now in the workplace, people older than you who are waiting for you to just show up and do what you do well, and not wait until you get all these letters for someone else to clap and say you're worthy to do it.
Yeah. And I think to Nina's point, for sure, be known for something, right? And like make sure that you like you're in your lane and you're honing in on whatever lane or specialty that you have. But I also think that that a big part of it is to just show up, right? And like just put yourself in that position to, you know, go after whatever it is that you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and someone will shoulder tap you. If you really need the certification or the skill, someone will tell you to go get it. Like they'll usually let you know, shoulder tap you to go upskill yourself.
So very true. Okay. Let's continue. Great discussion. How can women, WOMYN, women better leverage engagement opportunities like speaking opportunities, agile community presence? Who has some good recommendations for us? I think we're gonna ask Shayna to unmute. Let's hear from you.
So I would say it's very interesting, but the thing that has brought me the most value is actually just participating in communities, and then participating in like, you know, say for instance, you're in the Agile Leadership Network, participating in tangential communities as well, right? So like if, you know, you're working on a product that's more consumer facing, are you in the user experience groups? Are you in the product management groups? I will not tell you, I cannot tell you how much Meetup has been valuable to my career. It's really quite, because I was an early adopter of Meetup. Like I've just been on it for years, and just showing up places when we could, you know, physically show up. I would just talk about my expertise and be vocal in whatever session. And I've been tagged to do speaking engagements just from that. So I would say that, yeah, definitely. And like, if something just sounds cool and you want to geek or nerd out on it, attend and just be vocal about what you do.
All right. Anyone else want to add? Katherine, I know you're dying to provide input.
I think the other thing too is that I think we think that we have to go hunt out these opportunities, like they magically, like we're on a maze and we're trying to work out how do I get on that thing and how do I find that thing. And participation is one play, but also just putting out what you want to achieve in the atmosphere and being like, hey guys, I've made myself available for 5 speaking events this year. Hit me up. And posting that on Twitter and LinkedIn, I promise, sometimes it just is about putting yourself out there in a very simple way. Whereas if you put that out and say, oh, I'm really looking at trying to get my first speaking event, can someone help me? Like be the person that is already the keynote speaker. I've got five bookings left in my year for pro bono work. Hit me up if you think I can be of assistance. Like the power of the reframe. Can you see the Italian in me a little bit? Sorry. Just reframe and back yourself and tweet it out and put it on LinkedIn. And I promise you will manifest the future you want for yourselves. Just be already the speaker, be already the person that's on panel.
By the way, Katherine, I was reframing along with you because I'm like, exactly, look how she shifted that.
It
And it's just like, look, I mean, it's like, and you're like, oh yeah. And just the mindset shift there that comes along with it. I'm available for this. So like, oh, I'm trying to get my first speaking engagement. Yeah. And number one, it clicks in you as well. And you guys be brave, jump out there. It's like, if this is something you want, then go volunteer for it.
Yeah. I also would add the things that you want to. So, you know, for me, I do women in data, I do diversity inclusion, I do women in tech, but I also care about donating my time for non-for-profits, organizations, and domestic violence. And so being very clear, like what, like
these are my tag.
Yeah, these are my things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because when Katherine was doing that, she reminds me of one of my mentors. I have a board of directors of mentors that are like every stage of life. And she's like this. And I was getting into that imposter syndrome funnel that happens sometimes. And she was like, if you're not willing to sell yourself and your product, why should I buy it? Like,
Yeah.
So like, if you're not going to believe in you and promote the heck out of yourself, why would anyone else buy it? You know, why would they care? And if you don't speak of your assets and your value add with enthusiasm, and you just know for darn sure you are all that in a bag of chips, as she says, then, you know, then you're not ready yet. So just fake it till you make it. You're not even faking it. It's in there. You just need to push yourself. So I'm definitely with the Katherine, all that energy, I felt it.
I get up there and I do the things that scare me. Like if I'm kind of slightly where I'm like, I'm going to go make myself do the one that I'm like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, get in there and just get in there. You get in there.
I would also, just to add, because I know that Katherine mentioned pro bono work, but also you are an expertise in whatever you may do. So there is sometimes budget for you to participate in some of these. You know, you can figure out if it's 5 pro bono and I do 3 paid speaking engagements. That's also like, I just kind of want to put it out there that sometimes folks have a budget set aside for it and you're doing it for pro bono, and then your partner next to you is charging an honorarium.
All right. Thank you so much. So let's wrap it up. Like to try a little something different here. Want to hear from everybody. All right. What advice would you have wished someone had given you when you took on your first leadership role? All right. While Nina's thinking, come on, Erin.
What I was thinking too.
Okay, Erin, and then Katherine, Shayna, and then Nina to close us out.
Okay, what advice do I wish that someone had given me? My community is everything.
Okay, like that. Community is everything. Hear that, ladies, gents, everybody? All right. Katherine, calling Katherine.
For me, it's collaboration moves at the speed of trust. So I wish that I had spent less time focusing on how to make people collaborate and more time being a trust broker earlier in my career.
All right. Trust. I keep hearing trust, right? All right. Miss Nina.
I got it later, but don't underestimate, don't underestimate how much people want to be a part of what you're doing. Sometimes there are people who need to be invited, and that's all you need to do is invite them.
Right. Shayna's going to give us the good word.
I say always make time and space for your tribe, your team, just because they're the ones that are like pushing you up the mountain every day. So making sure that they're heard, that you understand, you know, the dynamics of their situation, what they're going through. It's important.
Right. All right. So I think now it's time for our Q&A. And I believe Jonathan is going to help me, or if you wanted to unmute yourself and ask questions to our panelists.
Sure thing. So I've got just a couple. This one here was directed for Nina, and the guest wants to know, what are basic books to improve ally literacy?
Ah,
I guess, well, I would say it depends on what kind of allyship you're talking about. I am all about anti-racism. I think that's, well, understanding how racism works will help you understand how to disrupt other systems. So I would say right now, Ibram Kendi's How to Be Anti-Racist, I think is good. Let's see. There's so many that I just started reading again. I love, hold on, let me grab it. It's D. Ray McKinson's book. 1 second, because I don't want to.
Typing these down to
Yeah, the
share.
Ta-Nehisi Coates, his work is quite excellent as well. And then the work on Jim Crow.
Yeah, so so this is D. Ray's book, On the Other Side of Freedom, A Case for Hope. I think this one has been helpful for me. There's a lot of little tidbits I've taken from this. And I think it's mostly helpful to, I think tips wise, if you want to be an ally, I think really just look up information that and by people from that community. Telling their own stories, I think is one of the best ways to like understand how to listen. And hear and sit with other people's stories. So really, if you're whatever the community, if it's LGBT, if it's people with different abilities, whatever, that look for material that is written by people from those communities. That would be my first piece of advice, is to look up those things and really learn how to sit with people's stories, how hard it is or uncomfortable it is.
All right. All right. I hope the guests were listening, the ones that asked that. Great advice. Nina, this other one's actually for you again. Let's see. I think you might have answered this. Are there free resources where we can learn about the latest advancements within, and then I couldn't catch the last bit, and then they asked about podcasts or blogs. So, if you're still around, if you want to ask that real quick, I think.
I have a resource for my folks who are on, like, I guess, subscription wise. So if you just would like to email me, contact me, I will put my email and I will send that to you.
Wonderful.
Whoever that person is, I'll send this one.
Oh, that Code Switch podcast is amazing. I love that one, Shayna. Yeah.
There's so many.
Well, actually, no one private messaged me anymore. I haven't seen anyone. If anyone wants to chime in, they've opened up this opportunity for anyone to ask the panelists questions.
Hi, I have a question. I was late in being able to jump in. Erin had a lovely quote about a tree and being in the shade. And I don't know if you can provide that into the chat.
I can. It was actually because I wrote a blog post about this called Mentorship Matters. And it's actually from Hyacinth Logson, but the kind of bastardized version of it is mentorship is the act of planting trees under which you will never enjoy the shade.
That's it.
And what I mean by that is that through mentorship, I'm helping build skills in other people. And I may not ever enjoy the benefit of those skills, but I have enough faith in humanity and hope that, whatever I pass forward, others will reap the benefits of. And that's why I want to do it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Also, we should have a separate, I think, session on all podcasts that we love. Shayna and I could probably riff on that for a bit because I have many.
Okay, any additional questions from the audience? Unmute yourself. We're a small, intimate crowd now.
I have one for the panelists or just anyone in general. What's been the most amazing lessons you've learned this year? There's gifts.
It's okay. It's okay to slow down.
There's gifts in this year amongst all the hecticness.
There are many gifts in this year.
Ooh, I think for me, the greatest lesson is rest is resistance.
Right.
That has been I'm resisting certain things around white supremacy, particularly high productivity, perfectionism, all of the stuff that gets in my way that I trip over, that hold me in bondage in some form. So I've said rest is my resistance for this year. Rest and joy are my resistance.
How many of us are going to go like write that down immediately? Rest is resistance. That's beautiful, Nina.
I love that.
What I learned this year was take a chance on me, to quote ABBA. Dare to do the things that I always wanted to do and see what comes back. It's been pretty amazing too. And Katherine, you have to answer that question then as well.
Oh, I'll wait for Shayna. Do you have one?
Oh, it's okay to slow down. Yeah, just kind of taking it at, I think a slower pace has actually gotten me a lot of like personal growth this year, and I'm loving it. So, Katherine, what about you?
Oh, for me, it's feeding the good wolf on the shoulder. You got two wolves. You can feed the one that's going to take all your energy and inspiration, or you can feed the one that is your own personal cheer squad. So I'm like, feed the good wolf. I don't know where I got that from. I'm sure if you Google it, it'll be somewhere, but
it's kind of an AA story or the I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's just been, for context, I've just come out of a 154-day lockdown in Melbourne, Australia, where we had our, I think what you would call your governor, but our state premier essentially lock us all down and get us out successfully through a second wave of COVID. But it was against the grain of our Prime Minister and the media. And so as a result of that, all of our television screens were basically saying how horrible we all were and what failures we were and how we were all doing the wrong thing. And yet we're all locked in our homes with our children trying to work out how to order groceries to get delivered, and did that for 154 days. And it got to the point where we had actually learned, turn off the radio, turn off Twitter, turn off Facebook, turn off the news, and only feed the narrative that gives you energy, to the point where our premier circumvented all of the television networks and gave a live broadcast on YouTube every day for 100+ days, because it was the only way we could get the information without it being distorted so badly by the media. And so it really taught me a massive gift around the things that you allow to impact your psyche and your energy, and how we all control what we do and don't look at.
I have another question. Well, one personally for all of you panelists, if we have time. With the way life is now, or has been with COVID, has this change brought about a new skill or something about you that you didn't realize you had in yourself? And how do you see that? Have you been using it? Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Has something like that happened to you?
We're waiting for someone else.
I'm trying to share the space.
Yeah, I can go. So I would say that I have been able to explore resiliency as an actual skill set. So COVID did hit my family personally very early on. So I was sort of kind of went into this as a shock of the system, like grief, business wise, it was just a lot all at once. And so I actually had to learn, like, of course, there's this word of being resilient, but I actually had to learn, like, this is a skill set, and like, what are some of the tools that I can use to actively employ it in my life so that I can have and be joy throughout whatever is going on. So that I would say that that's definitely, and in the military, apparently that's like standard training, but I would say that more organizations should look at formally training their employees in resiliency.
Awesome. Thank you, Shayna.
Catherine's comment. It's funny. I would say I think this year has allowed me to step back into my creative side. I think I felt like it was dormant. And I think this time has just reminded me, I'm a very spiritual person. And so for me, it was like, I'm not dealing with a sense of lack. I think that was a real shift, not a poverty mindset, but like thinking things from a strength-based approach and not just deficit, because it feels like everything's falling apart. And so for me, it was like, I have endless things that I can create and produce because I believe I come from a source of abundance, right? And so it's like, I'm not lacking anything. It's just being creative about using my gifts and my ideas in ways that have purpose or that make me feel good because I get to bring people into cool conversations. And I think this year has been probably one of the most creative years, whether it was in media or hosting events or role playing, like acting things on, I've helped a friend with a screenplay or reading or something in California, like just being able to just try things that I wouldn't have tried probably 2 years ago.
Awesome. Thanks, Nina.
Awesome. Okay. Any additional questions before I pass the baton over to Melissa?
I'll just answer Jonathan's question very quickly. I created, for the very first time ever, I created a product of my own and released it. And I had never done that before. I had only done that as part of organizations and, release something for that organization. But to create something of my own and put that out there felt incredibly brave and liberating and wonderful.
That's awesome. That's a pretty powerful statement because I know a lot of people out there, if we look at the state of things, there's like a flood of talent, hitting the market because people are losing their jobs. And it's kind of like a confidence boost to hear something like that. Like I did this for myself, and that pride that we need to have that I feel like a lot of us kind of lack with just the way life is on us. That's good to hear. Thank you.
Okay. Going once, going twice. Questions, last questions, everybody. I see a few people I know out there. I won't call you out by name. All right, well, if you don't mind, let's give our panelists an awesome round of applause. They were great tonight. Good job. Good job, ladies. Good job.
And thank you, Roxanne, for facilitating. You did an awesome job.
Well, I tried my best. Thank you.
You did great. This couldn't have been an easy. Yeah, this is wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, you guys did an amazing job. All right. So I believe I am to pass the baton over to either Jonathan or Melissa to close us out officially.
Yes. So on behalf of the Agile Leadership Network, I'd like to thank all of our panelists, Nina, Katherine, Erin, and Shayna, and special thanks to our facilitator tonight, Roxanne. Roxanne, on behalf of the Agile Leadership Network, we have a gift for you.
Oh.
We wanted to present you with a certificate to get some professional headshots from our photographer. And so
Nice.
Yeah, we want you to be like super fancy for 2021. And we wanted to thank you in this way for taking such good care of us. And on behalf of everyone who joined tonight, stay safe, stay brave, and stay agile. Have a good night, everyone. And special thanks to WITI again.
Yes, WITI, thank you. All right.
Good
Thanks,
night.
everyone.
Good night.
I
Bye,
know.
everyone.
Oh, where's the